final stages of buying a house. So you've went through all that whole process of finding your house, getting the mortgage, probably waiting for some time to make sure that the solicitor has got all the paperwork, and then now you're going through that exciting period of going in to meet with the solicitor to sign off and find out what exactly happens next. It's always common to use the phrase that everything can potentially start to snowball towards the final stages of completion. So when you go in, you meet with your solicitor. The solicitor will show you all the history of the property, show you maps, and you'll sign the contract. And you'll also go through, if maybe perhaps beforehand, a fixtures and fittings list. So at that point, you'll see what exactly are you going to be getting with the house compared to whenever you actually viewed the house. The rule of thumb is fixed items that cannot be easily removed will remain part of the property. So the typical ones would be your bathroom, your kitchen units, your integrated kitchen appliances, and your fireplace. Anything else that is fairly easily removable, particularly the likes of, and personal items as well, pictures, tables, chairs, beds, sofas, they'll all be removed. It's always good to ask, sometimes it might be something where you think it's a silly question, is something going to be included or is something going to be removed? It's always best to perhaps ask that silly question, because it may not actually in fact be a silly question. Because the last thing you want is to expect that you're getting a particular item at the property, and then on the day when you turn up to get your keys, it's not there. You're going to be greatly, greatly disappointed. So you've signed the contract then gets sent to the sellers. The seller signs it, and at that point are you only locked into the transaction. Up until the point of the seller signing the contract, you can change your mind, the seller can change their mind, and you have to remember as well, you can't make the seller sign the contract, or you can't make the seller accept your contract. But once the seller signs, that's it, there's no going back. You then move on to a completion date. The completion date is generally discussed in and around that time frame when you're signing the contract as well. The completion date has to be agreed by you as the buyer, by a seller, by the buyer's solicitor, by the seller's solicitor, and also the bank. So that's 5 people have to be involved in that process. So as you can imagine, it's not something that a date can just happen like, I want it to complete tomorrow, or I want it to happen in 2 days time or 3 days time, because you have all those people involved to make sure it runs smoothly. And then in that final few days before the completion date, that's whenever all the money starts to get moving. So you as a buyer will have your deposit money sent over to your solicitor. The bank will send the money over to the buyer's solicitor as well. So that means the buyer's solicitor will be sitting with all of the money on the day of completion, and on the day of completion it's sent over to the sellers. As soon as the money hits the seller's solicitor's bank account, at that point it becomes your property, and the keys can be picked up from the estate agent. Now, the big question that a lot of people ask is, what time will I get my keys on the day of completion? And quite simply, there is no set time. In theory, it's supposed to be by 12 o'clock, 12 noon, but that is not always the way. It's very, very common that it can slip into the afternoon. So it's always best not to book off work, not to have removals, deliveries or installations organised for that day, just in case things don't run smoothly. And the last thing you want is to basically remove the excitement of buying that property by having all those things organised and it not happening. So that's why it's always best just to be a little bit relaxed and simply have anything like that organised for a day or 2 after you get your keys, just to make sure everything runs smoothly. My name is Roy Dugan. Keep following me for more tips on the house buying process.